Hi, I'm Amy McLean, Editorial Director of Cable Facts, and I'm here today with my colleagues John Saavedra and Noah Ziegler. And we're here to talk about everything that's been going on, which right now it just seems to be like DTC central. We just had the ESPN launch, everybody's talking about it. John, I know you went to their press event in New York. What were some of the big takeaways there?
Well, first, let me emphasize what a time to be alive if you cover DTC launches and how they affect MVPDs and VMVPDs. I have had a great time covering all of these things in the past few days. I had the chance to go to an ESPN press event ahead of the launch, and I also was able to tune into a Fox One press conference showing off that app as well. I went to the ESPN one, and I have the hat to show it, hat to
Nice.
prove it.
The EI.
And and I have a little moleskin. I mean, I sort of want to start by setting sort of the tone that they set, which was this isn't a movie preview. We're not going to get everything completely rolled out at launch day. We're not going to have everything perfect on launch day. It is sort of a process. That's something that ESPN chairman Jimmy Pitaro really stressed at the very start of the event and the demo. But yeah, I mean, it was an interesting day one. In terms of how people are sort of discovering that they can access this service if they have a pay TV provider. A lot of the questions at this event were about that. There was a sense in the room that it wasn't completely clear how ESPN was working with each provider, if all providers, if all customers, all pay TV customers were able to access this on day one, what content they were able to access, because that is very varied based on the deal that each pay TV provider has with ESPN. So it isn't as clear cut as, hey, I can authenticate into ESPN and now I have access to all linear channels, all video on demand, and ESPN Plus content. That is simply not true. And not that ESPN pretended that that was the case during this event. They made it very clear that it was based on the distribution deal. But yeah, it was a bit confusing on that side of things. And I mean, I know from my point of view on day one, authenticating to ESPN, I did it through Fubo. And I know we all sort of have our authentication stories that we can go into. But day one on Fubo was a little confusing because I had to, you log in, you have your credentials, and you sort of have to go to a separate menu in the settings to find the pay TV provider. I was able to access it with my phone, scanning a QR code. So it was simple once you got there. But there is a sense of like, what is the average household going to know to do all of these steps? Like, what is the education like? And they did talk about that. Tina Thornton, who is a EVP of creative there, handles the marketing and is handling sort of like the education aspect of this on the ESPN side, was saying that they're thinking about it even from the sense of the wording of it, right? So, instead of saying you can authenticate, they're really pushing the language. You can access this with your provider credentials, which maybe is a more simplified way of communicating that. Again, the challenge is, who knows? Do people know that they can access this, right? And I do want to give a shout out to Charter, who are the only folks I saw on day one send out a comprehensive press release explaining, hey, this is what you can access with your cable package now. And it was like point by point how to do it, what content they could access, the ways that they could authenticate. So that was really great. But I think there's a bit of confusion for everyone else. I had another friend on who has Fubo, and I asked him like, hey, can you try this thing for me? Can you go download he already has ESPN. Can you go and use the ESPN app, but log in through your pay TV provider? And he kept asking me why. I already have ESPN Plus. And it was like, oh, I have to do the step of like explaining it's not the same thing now. There's a new app. There is sort of a whole other sort of authentication journey you have to go on. So I think education is the big challenge here. Like the app itself, what I saw was very exciting. All the features, and I guess we can talk about that briefly, but the scope of it is really impressive. I think the amount of content, I think they threw out a number like 47,000 live programs on this app are going to be presented. But I think education is absolutely the challenge here, and it's the hurdle they're gonna have to really deal with. But like, what were your authentication journeys like on this app?
Hey, Amy, I'll let you go because you had the Verizon stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, I guess I wanted to just say that I think it's funny you put that disclaimer in, that ESPN was pretty upfront and said this is a work in progress. It's not going to be perfect from day one, but we're reporters. We're going to pick it apart. So,
Yes.
and if you're an NVPD who doesn't have an authentication deal, then maybe you do want to hear some of this. So, I only knew that I could authenticate through Verizon because I read cable fax. Like if I was a customer, it's not in my bills that I see or anything. So I wouldn't have known that. And I did find it very confusing. So when I never found that QR code you mentioned. I'm sure it's there, but in my world, I just didn't find it. When I went to it on the TV, what was super confusing is it did mention that I could authenticate, but it listed Spectrum, DirecTV, and Fubo, and it said nothing about any other provider. It gave a website, which I went to, and again, it mentioned all those companies. And frankly, I probably would have just walked away, except I told you guys, like, I can't authenticate. And one of you said, go to settings. And when I went to settings, I found TV provider. And then there's a big list that you can go through. And I was able to authenticate through Verizon pretty easily then on both my phone and TV. But then it was like me, since I basically watch ESPN when Georgia's playing Georgia football, that's about the only time I personally am on there. Or if it's a really good 30 for 30, like I hate Christian Leitner. So I'm like, okay, what am I looking for? What's different? What's new? And I kept clicking these great looking documentaries that I wanted to watch, but they were all on ESPN Plus, which is not part of the Verizon authentication. So when I would click that, I would get, you want to sign up for this plan. So, it's a little, as you said, there's a lot of education needed. It's a little bit cumbersome still. And at this point, I didn't really understand what was different until I went on my phone and I did find the vertical content that they're offering there. Yeah. But I wasn't watching like a game and betting. I'll have to save that for the weekend, I guess.
Save the betting for Georgia Marshall next week. But the TV provider thing, it was your savior. It was my thorn on my phone for whatever reason. And I've signed in to my provider, which is YouTube TV, on the app before. For whatever reason, when I went back to sign into my provider, it kept bringing up a landing page for Verizon to sign in, which is who my phone company is through. But we haven't had Verizon Fios in the TV package in years. And it did not let me, it wouldn't let me exit. It wouldn't let me change anything. So I just had to switch to my iPad, and it was, perfectly seamless. And, okay, finally signed into YouTube TV and all that. But Amy, I agree with you. And maybe it's because it wasn't like there were a ton of games on yesterday, outside of Little League World Series, but it didn't really notice too much of a difference. I know they're trying to do the Verts thing with their social media. They recently just hired Katie Feeney, who's a Penn State grad, and has built a large audience in the sports community. But so far, it all comes down to, I feel like, that education aspect of, this is why this is why the app is different now. This is why it's different than ESPN Plus, and this is why you get certain things compared to other people. So it definitely is going to come down to that education aspect in order for consumers to actually understand what it is and how to use it, and even beyond, and convince them, hey, this is potentially an alternative viewing solution, with the betting and on-screen enhancements and integrations that they have. So it'll be interesting to see how much that education resonates throughout as time goes on. But I mean, football season is here, and I think people just care about one thing, and that's watching the game. And then however the easiest way to do it is what they're going to take. And it's going to take a little bit probably to convince people that maybe there's another way that's easier and more enjoyable for them, but we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's the authentication challenge. There's also the ESPN Unlimited versus ESPN Plus challenge of it all. Like, you know, even we're very plugged in, and I was at the event listening to, you know, the execs explain this to us, and I didn't leave completely understanding, you know, that I could, you know, with Fubo, I could access ESPN Unlimited. Yes, that did not include ESPN Plus content, which I also have to access through my Disney account that I have because I have a separate bundle. So, you know, I think that a lot of the things that ESPN is trying to do and that Fox One also is trying to do is like tackle the fragmentation of live sports. And, you know, I face this with, you know, Premier League, for example, you know, different network, but where I sometimes have to go to one place, you know, have to go to pay TV for another thing, have to go to a streamer for another thing, have to go to broadcast for another thing. And I'm not sure that the way that ESPN is doing it so far really addresses that, because it is still confusing. It is all in one place, but you can't access a lot of it. You know?
I think, you know, but we were made this point earlier. If it's, you know, it's not confusing for it's the cord cutters. Like, if you don't have to authenticate and figure all this out, you just logged in and this was great. You finally got ESPN direct to consumer. And I think that maybe is getting a little bit lost. We've been waiting for ESPN direct to consumer for 5+ years, right? There's been hints it's coming, and it is finally here. And so what that means to the traditional pay TV bundle, if we see even more dramatic losses there, remains to be seen. And I think it really goes back to that point you made about education, not just for ESPN, but for companies like Charter, Spectrum. The press release is great, but they also have all these hybrid packages that include streaming aspects. I'm not sure all their customers really understand what all they could be getting. So it's a big time.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like conversations with ESPN, ESPN's conversations with MVPDs and pay TV providers, they said that there are still negotiations with several providers. I mean, there are a few notable providers that weren't sort of on that initial list of providers that have access through authentication. You know, Comcast Xfinity stands out as one. But, you know, they said negotiations are sort of ongoing. There, you know, someone floated that maybe they could sort of like bake this into, you know, regular renewals with providers, carriage deal renewals with providers. But Jimmy Pitaro stressed that these conversations have been ongoing for years about their DTC move. Like, he said that this has caught no provider by surprise. This is his words. They all had fair sort of warning that this was coming. You know, he even talked about like even when they were sort of when the Venue Sports, you know, thing was going on, where they were developing that. Apparently, ESPN was already sort of in parallel developing their own DTC presence and experience. So this has been years in the making. I think those conversations have been happening. So what I'm trying to say is that it makes it extra interesting that there are providers that don't have deals in place for access. But he said for the people that do, he thinks that providers are very happy with the fact that ESPN is offering all this extra value and all these extra features. I think for the hardcore sports fan, you know, Amy, I know that maybe the features haven't really stood out to you so far, but I think for the hardcore sports fan, the cordless sports fan who is really into every aspect of watching sports, because like watching sports is not just about the game anymore, right? It's a spectacle. It is the fantasy. I mean, I do fantasy Premier League. It is the betting. It is the shopping. You know, it's all integrated into this app. So I think as an experience for the customer who can access everything and has no confusion, I think it is like a pretty good experience from what I've seen and tried. But yeah, it really varies on day one. It really varied on day one what the experience was for each kind of customer.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned this earlier, but what you could do, ESPN, when I'm watching Georgia football, I can get very, very stressed and I have a hard time staying focused. If you could just add like a little calm app button that I could click, and there'd be some peaceful music and some sunflowers. That would be very, very helpful. So just something to think about as you're.
It could automatically start playing a replays of, was it back-to-back national championships that Georgia has won?
It was Noah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, all I could find yesterday when I was trying to watch something, it was not a good Georgia-Alabama game. So, but Fox One is also rolled out. You mentioned that a little bit, John. I think it's a very different product. It's basically just a way to see everything in one app that's on linear. So, in terms of authenticating, it was a breeze for me. It was super easy to find. I didn't really have any problems.
I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. Completely different product. Even the way they talk about it, right? Like Pete Distad, who is the CEO of Fox One and sort of handling their DTC streaming product, he talked a lot about like profitability and sustainability, and that wasn't really like what ESPN was focusing on. They were focusing on the shininess and the scope and the ambition and the exclusivity of it. And I think Fox One has taken a much more measured approach. I mean, I think they've used the word measured in earnings calls and these presentations. It is very much where ESPN sort of wants to take the hybrid approach of catching cordless, offering this to pay TV customers. Like, it seems very clear to me that for Fox One, the big draw is trying to catch all the people that aren't on pay TV, have either fallen off, are cord nevers, which I it's a term that I only really hear Fox use, and I always like when they use it. Cord cutters, cord nevers, so that they can be a part of that ecosystem. I think Pete Distad threw out a number like there are 65 million households of cord cutters and cord nevers, and they want to try to reach as many as possible with this product. Now, the wrinkle is that when asked, what their expectations were in terms of subs, how many of those people they could actually hook into this product, they were sort of less clear. They didn't want to sort of commit to, hey, we know that we're going to catch X amount of people. I think Distad threw out, I forget the exact number, but it was, a very modest, and he said, like, it's a very modest number while we sort of try to figure out where that audience is, what we're sort of doing. It was still like very much the same wording as ESPN, where it's like, it's day one. We're still trying to sort of figure out the rollout of this. And that goes back to even why the app doesn't have exclusive content. They said they didn't want to spend all of this money releasing, new programming exclusively for this audience when they don't know how big the audience is, and more specifically what their needs are. Like, what are the needs of this audience that is coming specifically to this hub? For the pay TV subscriber, there are, additional features that they can join in. If they authenticate through the app, like for sports fans, there's the ability to catch up to live, which I know more services are rolling out. I know Prime Video has it. ESPN, that's a big new feature with their app. There's also the ability to watch condensed versions of games. If you don't have time to watch a whole game, you can just watch sort of like a highlights reel of the biggest moments. There is, DVR, which I know obviously pay TV has, but it is like a more centralized experience as well. Like on the homepage, you'll have all the live games, you'll have personalized highlight reels, you'll have live scores. I don't know if you guys have the same experience, but the way it's supposed to work is that when you sign on to Fox One for the first time, it asks you sort of what your interests are, and it asks you by genre. So it'll ask you news, entertainment, sports. And then if you, when you pick sports, it sort of asks you the specific leagues that you're into, and then it tailors it. AI powered personalization. So it is like a nice experience for pay TV customers who want sort of that extra touch. But really, it's super fans and cord nevers, I think, that they're really targeting with this product. And it feels maybe like a little less like it's on the cannibalizing front of things versus ESPN with all the confusion, all the exclusive content on that service. It feels a little bit more, pay TV friendly.
I think something too that maybe we don't really think about and talk about. In my household, we have it all. We have the cable box, we have all the apps, we have the connected TV. But my kids, I don't think who are like 19 and 14, I don't think they know how to use the cable box. They only just go through Roku and pick an app. And so now that I've added that Fox One app, I'm curious to see if they'll start to explore in there, because they just seriously don't go to that box. So something to think about.
I mean, this has been something. It's been funny to watch over the past year and a half, the narratives that ESPN and Fox have regarding DTC, because Fox for the longest time was sort of, we don't need to jump into the direct to consumer space. We're doing just fine. And then, Venue Sports was kind of seen as there's their solution into getting the direct to consumer space. And now Fox News obviously answers that. And Pete Destad, formerly the CEO of Venue, also has experience with Apple TV back when they were launching. And I know, as you said, Fox and Apple TV are very different in terms of, going for content versus not going for content. But it certainly is going to be intriguing to see the results of Fox One, how it pays off, and maybe if their strategy evolves, or if kind of what they're mapping out right now persists as time goes on after the release.
Yeah, and I just want to quickly redeem myself. Pete Destad said single mid-digit millions over the next few years. Shame on me for not knowing that number, but I did just look it up, and that was his exact wording. But he was very clear. I'm not going to lie to you and say that we know exactly, where this audience is, where we're going to get it, what the growth is going to be. It's day one. We're sort of easing into it. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah. And I think it's also important, not just, we've had all this DTC doings, but we're seeing some of the providers, the video providers, the traditional MVPDs and the digital MVPDs experiment as well. I thought it was interesting this week. We saw Sling come out with Sling Select, which in my mind is their answer to Fox's Fox One, because it's almost all Fox channels. It's 11 channels, Fox News, Fox Sports. I can't remember the other Foxes, Fox. And then there's a few others in there. There's like Game Show Network and Grit. And it's $19.99. I think that's the same price point for Fox One. So, there's some experimentation. And what's really interesting, John, I think you wrote about the Sling Day Pass for $5, right?
Yeah. I was personally very excited about Day Pass. The fact that, here's the interesting thing for me is that I feel like there's an opportunity to adventize, which is a word I think, movie studios use to eventize television. And that's sort of like the way that they framed it. They said it was perfect for, a weekend of sports or a day of sports that you want to watch, a series of sports games. You want to have a movie night. Now you have access to all of these movie channels. It's a Sling Orange specifically package that you get for Day Pass, not Sling Blue, or that you want to watch award shows. So I like that aspect of it a lot. The fact that, hey, instead of let's have a movie night, it's like, let's have a cable night, let's have a pay TV night. And I think for people who don't have channel packages and just depend, as you said, on the tile on their television, on a connected television, I think that is like an exciting proposition and at a very nice price point, I think. But obviously for me, for my specific use case, which is I need USA to watch Soccer. Premier League on the weekends when it's on cable, and it does not include USA. So I'm a little sad about that. So Sling, get on that, because I need to be able to watch my team on the weekends on cable.
Well, what they're doing too is they've monetized something that most people are guilty of, right? You want to watch something or you want that, and you look for the free trial for 5 days or 7 days and you cancel when it's done, right? They're just saying you don't have to wait around for the trial and play that game. Here's a way to do it. So I think it's pretty clever. Speaking of clever, I think ESPN, they did go all out for this app launch, and the press kit they sent was quite something. It's like a 2.5 foot locker I have back here. It's got so much stuff. It's got magnets. It's got stickers. I have a satin baseball jacket.
Foreshadowing.
And then I think the most important gift right here, it's your front row seat, even on the porcelain throne. So I haven't opened it, but assuming this is toilet paper, when you want to take your ESPN app with you to the bathroom. But yeah, they're pretty proud of this thing.
I mean, talk about educating. Talk about educating you folks. I mean, that's pretty solid. I mean, there's Stephen A. Smith talking through the Spring Street subway stop intercom about the app, and then there's toilet paper. I mean, they do it all, man. It's all in one place.
Is that baseball jacket? Could that be foreshadowing with rumors of ESPN and MLB potentially having a new look kind of deal involving MLB TV? But we'll see. Obviously there's a lot of moving parts with MLB, considering they were hoping to get everything straightened out by All-Star break, which we are over a month past. But deadlines, schmedlines.
Except for us, those still count. So, well, we could keep talking forever. There's so much happening, but this is going to be a wrap for this episode. Thanks for joining, and we'll be back with more as more happens.